This past weekend, LEGO announced a brand new sub-theme of the Icons range called the Midnight Valley. This has lots of LEGO fans excited about the potential for what this sub-theme could bring. And of course, the set itself looks very, very interesting and also exciting a lot of fans. So in this video, I'm going to talk more about the theme and its comparisons to the Winter Village. I'm going to talk about the set itself and what makes it such an intriguing one. And we're going to talk about the future implications, some of the future options that we might see in this sub-theme that do have some castle implications. So let's dive on in. So the first thing we'll talk about, of course, is the comparison to the Winter Village sub-theme that came out beginning in 2009. Now, a lot of fans immediately saw this connection because this announcement that we're getting a Midnight Valley series definitely seems like it'll be an annual occurrence. So it looks like this year we'll get the Mayor Manor on September 1st, and then probably October 1st is when we get typically get the Winter Village set. So we get the Spooky Village, then we get the Winter Village each year, quite possibly. Now, the connection goes deeper than that, though. If you take a look back at the 2009 release of the Toy Shop, it had 815 pieces, retailed for $60 US, 45 British pounds. And what's interesting is that it may not have been the very first thing you think about when you hear the term Winter Village or holiday or Christmas or something along those lines. Now, for some of you, you hear Christmas and holiday, you might think Santa, Santa's workshop, Santa's sleigh. Some of you might think of a cozy home with, a fireplace and a Christmas tree and people, family getting together, celebrating. You may not think of a toy shop. Now, of course, the toy shop has meaning for LEGO, not just because LEGO is a toy, but because the toy shop owner here is a carpenter. He's working with wooden toys, and that's how LEGO got its start. But it may not have been the first choice. And the same thing, I think, with Mayor Manor. I think people might think of that, but a lot of people would think of a spooky cemetery or maybe a Gothic mansion that's a castle or something along those lines, and not necessarily a Victorian home like this. Not to say that everyone was thinking of something differently, but that's the beauty of this, because when you think about spooky and you think about what could be in Midnight Valley, there are a lot of things that come to people's mind, which we'll talk about more in the last section of the video. Now, what's also interesting is that the original Winter Village sets were really strong deals in terms of value. Not just looking at price per piece, but when you look at the quality of the builds, the standard of building techniques that were used, which were cutting edge for the time, roughly 8 studs deep, so not a terribly deep building, open back, but intricate details and building techniques on the facade as well as the interior. And of course, we'll talk about in the next section something similar for this set. The second thing we'll talk about is the set. And the set itself is a good opening salvo for this sub-theme because it definitely looks appealing. Check out the facade. You do get 1,400 plus pieces for $120 US. I think it's 110 euro and 100 British pounds. And there are so many little details. There are some small pieces like tiles and plates that form the stained glass windows or the brick facade, maybe the detailing up by the roof. But there are a lot of really interesting parts, including the sand green leaves, which we've only seen in 7 prior sets, sand blue leaves, the 3-leaf pieces, those haven't come out very often, and other pieces like that. So I really enjoy what we're getting here in terms of the pieces, and the set, again, looks intriguing, and we know that LEGO is using some really modern building techniques. We know this because they're using plenty of snot techniques along the facade, as well as angles. You can see in some of the images just how intricate the sides of the main section before you get to the angled components of the wings. That doesn't even include the window on the right-hand side of the building that is tilted itself. So it has very much like Creel House vibes, but slightly different looking. Now, the techniques they use to get this are fascinating. And I think it's going to be a very, very impressive build, one that's engaging all the way throughout and promises to have some really interesting implications for the way we see the rest of the theme progress. Another nice thing I like about this is the minifig selection. There are 4 minifigs. It's interesting that LEGO highlights 3 of them in the main pictures and the picture of the minifig lineup with some of the animals like the cat and the rat. But they also have a knight in the interior. And that's really nice to see because not only is it a castle-based minifig, but you're getting 4 minifigs for the $120, which I would not say is a great value, but it's a solid value. I would say, by the way, a great value would be the new Moonlight Gazing Inn, or the Moon Gazing Inn. That's part of the seasonal series in the lunar sets, because though that set is like $120 and you get a lot more minifigs and you get over 1,600 pieces. So that's a really good deal in my opinion. This one is a solid deal. It's not as good as that one. But getting 4 minifigs definitely helps, and the minifigs you get are nicely done. Not only do you get the knight, but you get the mayor with the tuxedo. You get the his I'm guessing his wife, who's got that fancy dress. Notice the printing on the dress leads up to that bird nest collar piece that we've seen used in some of the Bricklink Designer Program sets. But you also get this housekeeper, and I really enjoy seeing some of the details in the interior that are associated with them, like portraits, the cat knocking over the teapot and the housemaid cleaning it up, the housekeeper cleaning it up. It introduces a lot of storytelling. Now, if we go back to the connection with the Winter Village, Jamie Berard started the whole Winter Village with the toy shop. He was the set designer. If you watch Lego Masters here in the United States, he's one of the judges, and he always talks about storytelling. Well, in that set, from what we know from interviews, it was going to be just a Christmas tree. But he added the toy shop, added some of the storytelling, added the carolers out there to give it that well-rounded appeal. We're seeing the same kind of thing with this Midnight Valley set. So I really enjoy what we're seeing there. Now we're going to talk about some of the potential sets in the future, because there really are a lot of ways that Lego can go with this. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, when you think spooky, you think Halloween, you think of something like this, your mind may go somewhere different than the Mayor Manor. In fact, that's what Lego is banking on. It's not just me being cynical about Lego trying to earn money. Rather, it's good in terms of how they can appeal to as many people as possible, and people can enjoy some of these products. We know that there's going to be a spooky train at some point in the near future, probably some sort of Midnight Valley train station. I can definitely anticipate there being a cemetery set. There could be some other sets that are haunted, like a vampire's mansion or a Gothic castle. I think you can take a look at the success of the Adventures in Transylvania Bricklink Designer Program set, maybe even the success of the Haunted Mansion Creator 3-in-1 set from last year. You're starting to see Lego put together some of the things that we might see in the future. And we know that there are a lot of different ways that they can go with this theme, including, I will say, that potential castle option. Now, you all know that we're huge castle fans, and we like thinking about different ways that castle could fit into existing Lego themes and sub-themes, because Lego doesn't always want to give us castle sets. So one potential could be some sort of haunted castle that would be, full of like a Dracula and Dracula Nights and some other really spooky elements like we saw with Fright Nights back in the 1990s. I think there's some really interesting implications we could see for that. We're already getting that night here in the Mayor Manor, which I think is excellent, and it's a nice little way to get another medieval minifig. But I hope that we get something that fits in that Fright Nights theme, or the other like Monster Fighter. That's the theme I was thinking of, that Monster Fighters mansion and castle from back in 2012. So there are definitely distinct possibilities. We could see something castle oriented there, and I'm hoping it's going to have some sort of new faction in there, like the Bat Lords from those Fright Nights back in the late 1990s. Let's spend a little bit more time talking about that castle from the Monster Fighters that released all the way back in 2012, because it is a really intriguing set back then and could relate to something now. So this one had a lot of different towers in it. It had a very 2010s vibe to the gate and all that. I don't know if I would want to see something similar to that in a castle, but there are a lot of really nice castle parts and elements to it. The rock work, a lot of the peaked roofs, and a lot of the battlements. If you take a look at the inside of the set or the back of the set, there really are, I think, some potential for details that would be fun. You could have, of course, prisons and dungeons and bone yards and all those kinds of things like you see in this set, but you could also have a lot of trapdoors, a lot of play features, and maybe even some sort of a wizard, a ghost or something like that that would fit in very nicely with the castle theme. So there is quite a bit of potential when you take a look at this old set from 2012 and what it could be translated into today. So I'm very curious to know what you think of this new theme, this new sub-theme, I should say, and all the potential that it has. I know it definitely has me excited about what's coming out in September, because I know there are some sets that are coming out that I'm not particularly interested in, but this one has definitely caught my eye and my attention, especially because it is a sub-theme. I do like collecting some of those sub-themes, especially when they're well executed. So let me know if you like this, and let me know which future sets you want to see down in the comments below. I'm always interested to see what you have to say. Thank you so much for watching, and always remember to keep building together.